This episode is brought to you by Fortis Mentis Psychiatry, where Black and Brown girls can find individual therapy, mindfulness and meditation coaching, medication management, and case management. To learn more, go to fortismentispsychiatry.com/safe place. Hey, gorgeous ladies. Welcome to another episode of Safe Place for Brown Girls. It's a safe place for brown girls to breathe, to feel, and heal. I'm your host, Dr. Kathleen Estimé, a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and your sister in the journey towards mental wellness. This podcast is all about creating space for conversations we don't always get to have. Conversations around anxiety, self-worth, body image, boundaries, and mental health, all from the lens of women of color. Because let's be real, the world doesn't always see us clearly, and the systems meant to support us often leave us out of the room entirely. Today we're tackling something that affects every part of our mental health journey: underrepresentation in the mental health community. What does it mean when you rarely see a therapist who looks like you? When cultural understanding is missing from your care? And how does that impact our ability to heal? If this is your first time here, welcome to the family. Make sure you hit subscribe. And if you know a brown girl who's been carrying too much on her own, send this episode her way. You need this. She needs this. We all do. So let's get into it, because this one is personal. Have you ever Googled therapists in your area and just scrolled? Looking at the page after page, hoping to see someone who's even remotely looks like you? Yeah, been there. And it's exhausting. The truth is, Black and Brown professionals are widely underrepresented in the mental health space. I'm talking about the people who are supposed to help us feel seen, safe, and understood. But we're barely in the room. Here's a stat that hits hard. Only 4% of psychologists in the US are Black. 4%. Out of every 100 mental health professionals, only 4 might know what it's like to grow up with cultural expectations you can't talk about, or carry trauma that's been passed down silently from generation to generation. And if you're Latina, Asian, or Indigenous, the numbers aren't any better. It's like we're being told, yes, healing is available, but not made for you. Now, imagine finally working up the nerve to go to therapy, maybe after years of pushing through on your own, and sitting across from someone who you know already just doesn't get it. Not in a rude way. They probably are really lovely people. But you find yourself explaining instead of healing. Explaining your hair, your tone, your family dynamics, why therapy is even taboo in your home. It's like you're paying to be a cultural translator before you're even getting to your trauma. And let me tell you, it's hard to unpack your trauma when you're also translating your culture. That quote lives rent-free in my head because it's so real. When we talk about underrepresentation, we're not just talking about hiring gaps. We're talking about access to safety, access to being understood without having to code switch or shrink yourself. We deserve better than that. So why does this all matter? Because when you don't feel safe in a space that's supposed to be safe, when you don't feel seen, it changes everything. And lots of us have been taught directly or indirectly that therapy isn't even for us. Maybe you grew up hearing things like, just pray about it, or we don't air our business out to strangers, or maybe even the idea that therapy was associated with being crazy, which let's just call it what it is. It's a whole lot of stigma rooted in survival and silence. That inherent mistrust is deep and it's valid, but it also keeps a lot of us from getting help until we're already at a breaking point. And even when we do go, the system isn't always built to help us. There's a lack of cultural competency that leads to misdiagnosis. I can't tell you how many Black women are told they're angry when they're actually anxious or depressed or grieving something no one else is even asked about. And here's the part no one else talks about, the emotional labor, when you're sitting there trying to open up, but also trying to explain why your mom doesn't say, I love you, but shows it through food, and why you can't just cut off your family, even when they're harmful, or why being the strong one isn't empowering, it's exhausting. It makes it really hard to keep going back. You start wondering if it's even worth it, and it's dangerous because healing is a long game. It takes consistency. But if you don't trust the space, if you feel like you're doing double work just to be understood, you bounce. And I don't blame you. This is why this conversation isn't just about numbers. It's about trust, access, and belonging. You deserve care that understands you without translation. You deserve a therapist who sees all of you and says, I get it. Not, can you explain that again? You know, I remember this one moment early in my career. I had a Haitian therapist, a Black woman in her early 40s or 50s. She was an excellent therapist. I would tell her I've seen 3 therapists before her, and all of them kept asking me about my anger. But I wasn't angry. I was anxious. I was trying to hold everything together and not let it all fall apart. And I'll never forget this. I told her, you're the first person who didn't make me feel like I had to defend myself just to be heard. That really stuck with her. Because sometimes all it takes to feel safe is knowing the person across from you gets it, that they've walked in your shoes, or at the very least, they know the road you've been through. I felt it too. In my own life, I've sat across from someone who's meant well, but didn't get the cultural weight I was carrying. You leave those sessions feeling more disconnected than when you came in. So I want to ask you, have you ever felt invisible in the therapy room? Like the core of who you are, your culture, your identity, your rhythm was just missing from the conversation? If that's ever been your experience, I want you to know that that's not in your head. And you deserve better. You deserve to be seen without having to over-explain yourself. So let's talk about what actually needs to change, because venting is one thing, but really healing comes when you push for something better. We need more Black and brown therapists, period. We need more providers who look like us, talk like us, pray like us, and know what it feels like to carry the weight of both excellence and expectation. And that means we also need systemic change, access to education, mentorship, and funding to get more people of color into these mental health roles. But it's not just about the therapist. It's about making all the spaces more culturally competent. That could be your doctor's office, your school counselor, your HR department, anywhere where decisions are being made about your mental wellness. That space needs to understand your lived experience. And while therapy is powerful, it's not the only way we heal. Some of the most healing experiences I've seen have happened in community-based healing circles or group sessions led by women of color, of faith-based support groups, where you don't have to explain why the music matters or why your grandmother never talked about mental health. If you're listening to this and thinking, okay, Kathleen, but what can I do? Start where you are. Mentor someone, support a friend who's studying to become a therapist. Speak up when you see something culturally off in your workspace or school. Share your story. It helps more than you think. And most of all, remind yourself and your sisters that you're not broken. You're just healing in a system that wasn't designed with us in mind. Thank you for spending time with me today. If today's episode hit something in your soul, you're not alone. There's so many of us out there doing the best we can with what we've been afforded. That deserves recognition. Please subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next conversation. And if you found this helpful, send it to a friend, cousin, or a sister, anyone you love who needs to hear it. You can connect with me on Instagram and TikTok at Fortis Mentis Psychiatry. I post clips, quotes, and questions to keep the conversation going. Until next time, take up space, take care of your mind, and take care of each other. This episode was brought to you by Fortis Mentis Psychiatry, where Black and brown girls can find individual therapy, mindfulness and meditation coaching, medication management, and case management. To learn more, go to fortismentispsychiatry.com/safe place.